Welcome, everyone, to Thursday's Lunch and Learn series. So today we have a special guest star with us. Just so everyone knows, this is totally our intention. Make sure that you mute your computer. There you go. Excellent. All right. So this is our intention, is to have guest speakers every once in a while. In fact, more than every once in a while. We love to share the perspectives of other amazing people. And we have Dr. Haley Nelson with us today, who is a team member of ours and business partner through our connection with Arbonne, who sponsors this series. But these are all short personal and professional development workshops. If you've been with us before, you know that. Today, we are lucky enough to have Haley talking about stress and the brain. She is a neuroscientist and a professor and a generally awesome person. And I personally am super excited about this today because I am feeling, well, I was, before I meditated, feeling incredibly stressed today. So I'm really excited to hear what Haley has to say. And when we're done, we are jumping onto Clubhouse to continue this discussion. So if you're here with us live, that's great. If you're catching the replay, let us know your thoughts. And if you want to join us on Clubhouse, we'll be there at 12:35. And now I will pass it on to Haley. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Diamanda, for that lovely introduction, and for Melissa for having me. I am Dr. Haley Nelson, as Diamanda said, a neuroscientist and also a psychology professor, on top of wearing the hat of being a mother of two very wild and crazy boys. So when we're talking about stress, I get it, right? When we think of the word stress, think of it as a very active word, an active term. So we all have stressors, which are things, but the stress itself is a reaction to that stressor, right? And so we really do is, I don't want to say we have full control over that, because we obviously don't, but there are ways in which we can mitigate the negative consequences of having too many negative stressors in our life, which can lead to a lot of physical and mental challenges, right? Increased blood pressure, mental health considerations like anxiety and depression and things like that can all start to accumulate over time with too much of these stressors taking over our life. So what happens when we encounter a stressor, our bodies, our brains really control everything, and our brains are set up to protect us. So when we encounter a threatening situation, then our body is going to recognize it through our senses, and then we're going to generate electrical activity in our neurons that are going to trigger our bodies to automatically tap into what's known as our sympathetic nervous system. And you might notice increased heart rate. Our breathing rate is going to start increasing. If you were looking at your eyes, you would see your pupils will start dilating and changing. Just everything about our digestion slows down. All of these things are going to start automatically changing. You don't have to tell your body to stop digesting that pizza that you just ate, right? Because you're trying to get out of a burning building, right? These are like an acute stressor. So our sympathetic nervous system is going to be activated. And then let's say we escape the building, everything's fine. We didn't lose anything. The fire chief came and they sprayed everything down and everything's fine, right? We take that deep breath. And what that is doing is that's triggering, it's signaling to us that our parasympathetic nervous system has activated, right? And that's when we're going to start having our heart rate decrease and our breathing rate decrease, and our digestion can start ramping up again. Our immune system can start functioning properly again. Okay, what we get into trouble if we are under that sympathetic system for too long. We need it to survive. It's essential for us. Think of it as like that fight or flight response. Okay, versus the parasympathetic, I like to call that our rest and digest response. That's the state that we want to try to maintain. And I'm going to come back to this in just a little bit. So that's really important for our acute stressors, okay? For our chronic life stressors, right? Anything that happens for a longer period of time, our body is going to say, okay, well, we can't maintain this sympathetic system. It's not an acute response. This is something that I need to maintain for a longer period of time. And our brain then activates what's known as our HPA axis, which stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right? That's a mouthful, I know. But what that is the end result of that is a release of cortisol. And you've probably heard the hormone cortisol, otherwise coined as like the stress hormone, right? Again, we need cortisol in our life. It is protective. It's there to allow us to function in these times of chronic stressors, right? But if you have too much cortisol and it doesn't shut down, if there's something wrong with your feedback system and it's not slowing down and you just have an accumulation of cortisol, that's when you can have those long-term consequences. So, such as, your immune system is shot, you're more prone to infections, your heart rate is not functioning properly. You get these chronic stress headaches, your digestive system is out of whack, all of these other inflammatory signals. So how can we try to mitigate some of these negative consequences? Okay. When you think of stress, stressors themselves are neutral. They're just nouns, right? So you can have good stressors like you're getting married or you're having a baby, or you can have negative stressors like the death of a loved one, right? And then we have to quantify how impactful that is to us. And that's a very individualized thing that people can work with you on to identify. But they're just nouns, right? They're just things. So what is causing that stress, that reaction to it, is an emotion, right? So when we're thinking about an emotion, whether it's a positive, happy or sad, whatever the emotion is, emotions are comprised of three things. We have our physiological response, which I just highlighted here, right? With the sympathetic versus the HPA axis, if it's a stressor. And we also have, so that would be our physiological response, right? Our biology there. We also have our psychological, like how our cognitive evaluation of it, right? How it's affecting our psychology. And then we also have our behavioral reaction to it. Okay. So what I want to challenge people to do is try to see how can we mitigate some of those negative consequences, looking at our physiology, looking at our psychology, and also looking at our behavioral response to it. Okay. So some things, when you're just talking about the psychology of it, when you're encountering those stressors in your life, how are you viewing them? Right? Are you looking at them as a threat? And if so, it's going to lead to, an anxious, fearful type response. Or are you looking at it as a challenge, which is really going to focus and motivate you and energize you? Okay. So that's one way that you can do this. Talking to people about how you're feeling, actually engaging your thought process, your cognitive thinking will help with this. Now, looking at it from more of a behavioral standpoint, and I know we've worked with Diamando as well as Melissa on this, breathing, right? I talked about when you're activating your sympathetic system and you all of a sudden get over to that parasympathetic, you have that deep breathing. So if you can target those behavioral reactions and force yourself to do those, that can actually trick your body and your brain into engaging in that parasympathetic response. Those deep diaphragmatic breathing exercises, those breaths that are engaging and tightening and activating your diaphragm, is going to increase blood flow, oxygen to your brain, to the rest of your muscles, to your body. And it's also going to help with your lymphatic drainage system, right? To help detoxify you. It's so important to have those deep cleansing breaths. And it can also then in turn also activate that parasympathetic rest and digest state that we also want to be in. When it comes to the biology of it, there's so many different tricks to be able to do this, right? And as a neuroscientist, this is my area of expertise. So many different tools in your tool belt. I'm happy to talk to people more in depth about this. Hop on a Clubhouse after this. If you're able to chat with us, have a conversation, or just reach out to one of us. Diamando or Melissa can get you in touch with me, or you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram as well. But just some little tricks. Of course, there's supplements like omega-3s, and I love ashwagandha as well as phosphatidylserine are great herbs and natural remedies. But a really easy, free way that you can do this would be to get out and do some physical activity, some aerobic activity. I don't know where you are. I'm in Philadelphia. It is a perfect, beautiful day outside right now. So as soon as I'm done with this, I plan on going outside, getting some fresh air, listening to the birds, relaxing, putting myself into that. And I want to get some aerobic activity because that's going to increase the blood flow, the oxygen, all of these things that I need that research has actually shown over time can mimic the same chemical changes that pharmacological agents like antidepressants and sometimes benzodiazepines can do, right, over long term. So that's a really natural, very healthy way to be able to take care of the biology. So think about how you're thinking about these stressors. Also take notice of what your behavioral actions are. Stand up tall, proud, right? And, so you can work on your mindset, you can work on your breathing, and also getting out and doing some aerobic activity. And then you can think about your biology, whether it's through supplementation, whether it's through changing your diet to help reduce the negative consequences of inflammation, eliminating toxins in your environment. And when I say toxins, that includes toxic people, toxic relationships, toxic, smoke in the environment, all of those types of things. So I'm happy again to talk to people about this further. And also I want to put in there the biology. There's definitely a need for prescription medications for some people as well. So I want to make sure that I let people know that if you're taking those, keep taking them. Don't stop taking them for any reason. Always consult a physician or your other qualified healthcare professional before you make any kind of changes like this to your day-to-day life, to make sure that it's healthy and appropriate for you in your particular situation. But I think that about wraps it up. I know it was only 10 minutes. I could go on and on for like a whole semester on this, hence which I do on my day-to-day job. But please, I'm happy to share more tips and tricks. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you. Again, this is Dr. Haley Nelson, and I appreciate you checking this out.
Haley, before we hop off, I know we have to head over to Clubhouse, you guys, but I just want to say one thing. As you're talking about the behavioral responses to our stress, I kept thinking to myself, like, oh, so it's probably not a good idea when we're trying to rush out the door in the morning and Jack's like getting upset for me to then start running around the house like Chicken Little. The sky is falling.
Easier said than done, though. I get it with two boys, and I'm like, Charlie, you're gonna miss the school bus. We have to go right now. And I'm running around packing the lunch. But if I had made the plan earlier the night before, I could have packed the lunch. I could have gotten the clothes laid out, so it would have been calmer. And then he goes off to school with that calm parasympathetic state. But no, my fault, my bad. Mom fail here. He rushes off to school in that heightened state. So sorry, Charlie.